Are you ready for the next step in your career? Do you feel like you're in a place where you're seeking guidance, but not getting it? Are you leading a team that just isn't listening and you're not getting the results you need? Is it time for you to sharpen your leadership skills? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast, the place where emerging leaders in hospitality come to be informed, inspired, and transformed. My name is Arthur Keith, and I'm the host of the podcast. And I am thrilled to be here with Radley Medina, talking about a topic that we both love and have seen firsthand and lived it. And the topic is about leading during transformation, what it truly means to lead during transformation and what true transformation looks like. True transformation must look at the full human experience and really talk to all aspects of the operation from an employee perspective, a guest perspective, and really goes deep into everything that's involved in making all those things happen. And it's, true transformation is not being afraid to take some risk and not being afraid to blow up what is known as the status quo. But before we get into the topic, who is this Radley Medina guy and what is he all about? So Radley, who are you and how did you get here?
Well, my name is Radley Medina. Those who know me best might call me Funky, as in Funky Cold Medina. Something I picked up during my time at Caesar's Palace. So who am I? Well, first and foremost, I view myself as a leader, somebody who has a passion for innovation and a passion for possibility. Career-wise, though, I started out as a front desk agent at the Rio more than 2 decades ago in 1999. I spent a few years there in hotel operations, doing a bunch of different things, holding the role of front desk supervisor. I was a business center manager, spa and salon manager, and eventually hotel manager. But then after a few years of doing that, I was offered an opportunity to leave hotel operations to take on a regional role for what was then called Customer Satisfaction Assurance, or CSA.
Oh, yeah.
Which was Harrah's Entertainment's nascent customer experience program. And so in a very short period of time after accepting that role, I found myself having to become what I call functionally familiar with the entire business, casino operations, and even a little bit of marketing and finance.
Right.
And so definitely drinking from the fire hose there. I did that for a few years, and then I accepted a position at Caesar's Palace as the property's first ever CSA manager. A little bit more than a year after going there, I became the property CSA director. And it was an exciting time. I moved into a corporate role with Caesars Entertainment, enterprise operations.
Give us a sense for the range of properties that you were working with and what type of operations were they?
The smallest property was the Harrah's in Metropolis. There couldn't have been more than maybe 100 or 200 rooms there, all the way up to the flagship, which was Caesar's Palace, right? And so there are thousands of rooms, dozens of restaurants and outlets, a massive casino floor.
So 100 rooms to 3,000 rooms. You've been in that?
Absolutely, in that scope. And then in 2010, as you well know, Mr. Keith, you offered me the opportunity to join you as a Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas.
Sure.
$4 billion property here in Sin City, where I was the director of excellence. In 2012, I was given the opportunity to go to Station Casinos and to be the company's first ever head of experience there. Fast forward a few years, 2016, I was given the opportunity to return to Caesars Entertainment as vice president AGM at Harrah's Resort Southern California. And recently, a few years ago, went through a bit of a marketing transformation to become Funner California. So we can talk more about that a little bit later. And then in 2018, became a free agent. I've been doing some consulting since then. Early last year, I took on the role of chief operating officer at a company called HS Brands Global. Unfortunately, that was a pretty short-lived gig, simply because I took that right before the pandemic started. And so that brings us to present day.
So Radley, you've certainly covered a lot of ground in your career and seen a lot of different operations in a highly competitive marketplace in Vegas, but truly all across this country and internationally. I'm sure you've seen a lot of different leaders out there, both successful and not so successful. And in your role, you have to work with them and inspire them and kind of guide them. I'm just curious, and excellence was a word that you mentioned that was part of what you did, and customer satisfaction, something you were focused on. Those are two words that any leader in hospitality should have in mind. How do you create excellence and how do you create better customer satisfaction? But what would you say was your superpower that allowed you to be successful and work in that area?
Well, it's funny you mentioned superpower because I think all of us at some point in our lives, right, pretend like we're Superman or our own superhero, and we, try to think of creative powers to have. But in the world of, I guess, business and leadership, I think my superpower is being a maverick with a servant's heart and a passion for possibility, as I mentioned a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, I think those who know me best would say that I'm pretty good at seeing around corners, and I'm pretty good at coming up with pioneering ideas that deliver innovative results, right? And I mentioned, Funner, California. And again, when the time is right, we can talk about that in detail. But I do these things while always prioritizing people. And by people, I mean guests, employees, and partners, vendors, anybody I might come into contact with, or anybody that the organization could have an impact on. And so I guess my superpower is that it's being a maverick, being able to see around corners and innovate and lead people to spaces where they may not feel very comfortable as far as ideation is concerned, and as far as identifying what the real problem happens to be, and then coming up with cool solutions to solve those problems, but putting people in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
See, we talk about hospitality, right? But in my opinion, we're really not so, we are in the hospitality business, but we're more in the people business, right? Delivering experiences that are most meaningful to them, whether it's experiences for guests or for employees or for business partners, owners, things of that nature.
I love that you use the word maverick, and we like to talk about think big. That great leaders are, need to be able to think big, and the great leaders don't typically think like the average thinker. They're not afraid to put themselves out there, and they're creative and they're innovative. And I got to share this with our listeners that I've seen over the most recent years, where you talked about being creative and innovative and out there. I see that you've gotten into cooking and creating really cool food way beyond just like what the typical home chef is doing, and you're posting it on Instagram. Tell us more about that, and what is that feeding in you as an individual and as a leader? No pun intended.
Sure. First, plug at Radley Medina on Instagram if you want to go check out some of that food.
All right, you got that. Radley Medina on Instagram. Is that it?
On Instagram, right.
All right.
Yes. So I guess it really started with when I took an assessment of my career thus far, and I've had a lot of time to think. I think a lot of us have had a lot of time to think sitting at home in quarantine. But I started thinking about some of the most rewarding times I had while at work, and some of the most fun I had while at work.
Okay.
And while it's not true to say that 100% of my most rewarding moments were spent in kitchens, a lot of them were. So going into a kitchen with the chef and the food and beverage team to check out a new menu idea, right? Or to help with R&D, like maybe a chef or a sous chef or a line cook had an idea for a dish that they're really passionate about, and they wanted somebody to taste it and give them feedback. I was the first to volunteer for that kind of stuff. And I noticed that some of the most passionate people, I don't know if this is your experience, but some of the most passionate people in hospitality are those who work in restaurants, right? And so that's what really kind of got, I guess, seeded my passion for food. And then that seed was nourished and started to really sprout during our time at the Cosmopolitan. Because as you know, that resort, perhaps more so than any other in Las Vegas, certainly at the time, probably even still today, puts food at the center of the experiential offering.
Cool.
And, some world-class chefs there. And so I had the honor and the privilege of dining at all those restaurants more than once. And that really kind of blossomed my idea for food. So then, I'm not somebody who likes to just sit back on his laurels. I don't like to remain stagnant and just watch TV on the couch necessarily. And so when I found myself at home with a lot of time and not really knowing what I wanted to do with it, I started to pursue, I guess, cooking as a way to fill the time, but also as a way to express my more creative side, to allow any intrinsic passions I have to come forward through. And that's why I got into cooking.
I want to say I follow your posts and I look at what you're creating. I'm like, I can't do that. And I love the fact that you're doing it because, on an earlier episode where we did a podcast on the topic of do shit you love.
Right.
Be it professionally, personally, find out what you love, what your passions are, and go out and do it. And it's quite evident. And you just shared that you love food, you love creating, and you're doing it. And you found the time and space to do it. And you found that you're really, really good at it. Imagine that. You're really, really good at something that you're passionate and love. Right. And that's just something we share with leaders to find that professional side, find it on your personal side. And it's just beautiful when you have that. So,
right. You're inspiring me now to perhaps consider opening a restaurant one day because, to your point, I think the people who are most successful, and when I say successful, I'm not even just talking about financial success, right? I'm not even talking about notoriety or building one's brand. Successful in terms of rewarding work or meaningful work. Those who are most successful are those who do what they love, those who do what they're passionate about, and really dedicate their lives to becoming a master, whatever that happens to be, right? And so I fully agree with you. Passion is important, and loving what you do is important.
Yeah. So as much as I love talking about food, I want to bring it back to today's topic, which is leading during transformation and the different operations that you're involved in, and seeking to see create better results. Well, let me take a step back. What does true transformation look like to you?
It's a very good question. To me, true transformation isn't necessarily about going from some current state to a desired future state, but I know that's a pretty common definition of transformation. Because all too often the focus becomes solely changing somewhat, right? By modifying how things are done. And it's accomplished by taking a conventional strategic planning approach. You come up with or reaffirm existing goals, and you revisit or recommit to strategies and tactics, and then you execute. In a way, that's transformation, but it's a bit superficial, if you ask me, because it's transformation built on, if I borrow from the field of medicine for a bit, it's built on a diagnostic prescriptive model instead of a preventative or whole health one, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And so I think of a true transformation is less about implementing new ways of doing things and more about creating a new culture, either wholly new or just meaningfully strengthened. To go back to science or to the world of medicine again, it's less about gene expression, like what your genes do, and more about gene modification. Not to get too geeky about it, but.
You have a good example where you saw that happen in one of the operations that you're involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I've already brought up the funner bit a couple times, so I might as well bring it up again.
Yeah.
So before I joined the team at Heritage Resort Southern California in 2016, a few months before I joined the team there, they already embarked on this journey of bringing this idea of Funner California to life. And so the resort's marketing team was working with an agency in San Diego to really vet this idea and make it a thing. And then one thing we realized when I got there, I had many conversations with people. One thing that we as a team realized was that the transformation had to be more than just about creating new slogans or new mottos or creating a new marketing campaign around, Funner. Let me back up a little bit because I just realized that people might not know what Funner California is. So to give some context, Heritage Resort Southern California is a resort managed by Caesars Entertainment, but it's actually owned by the Rincon Band Louisiana Indians. And so it's a tribal casino. And because it sits on tribal land, the tribe has its own sovereign government. They can essentially do whatever they want to do. So what the management team did was they presented an opportunity to the tribal council to rename the land that the resort sits on to Funner, California, to create a city, if you will. And we knew that the transformation had to be more than just about marketing. There had to be a wholesale transformation of the resort, right? There had to be physical changes. There had to be new things that were being done on the casino floor, in the hotel rooms, in the restaurants to convey this Funner experience for people. But more than that, we needed the culture to change. We needed the leaders and we needed the employees there to start thinking about how they can bring Funner to life. And so some of the things we did was, we held resort-wide meetings with people, rallies, several of them with different employees and leaders. We changed certain things that some casinos would have never dreamt of doing. So for instance, as you know, Arthur, dress code is something that's important, at least in Vegas and casinos everywhere, where, people in leadership would wear, at the very least, a sport coat, if not, closed collar, suit and tie. People who were front desk agents would wear their uniform. People who were dealers would wear a uniform and be dress pants, black shoes. Everything was really prim and proper. So one of the things we did there to get the employees to realize that we really meant it, that this was more about changing who we are, changing the way we think, and not just a marketing campaign, was we said, okay, if you want to wear jeans to work, doesn't matter who you are, go right ahead. If you want to wear, whatever, if you want to wear pumps or, the newest Jordans or some Yeezys to work, you can do that.
There you go.
We also allowed leaders to, instead of just walking, from point A to point B to a meeting or going, to across the guest parking lot to one of the external buildings for training, on foot, we let people use tricycles or skateboards or scooters to get around. And so things like that. We installed games in back of house areas that people can stop and play, like shuffleboard and darts and other games of that nature. So it was a true transformation, not just in terms of a marketing campaign and some guest facing elements. We wanted to make sure that everybody was involved in this Funner experience.
I love the fact that it sounds like you did some things that would definitely have been considered risky.
Right.
Or just bizarre and out there by the established thinking.
Right.
I love how you define transformation as something that's much more holistic than just changing some names or changing some policies. It's really looking at everything involved in an area or an operation all the way through, all layers of it, everything that, customers see, feel, touch, hear, smell. Is the same thing from the employee's perspective as well. And I think that's where a lot of businesses fall short. They may look at it from either the guest perspective and miss the employee perspective, or they look at it from the employee perspective and miss the guest perspective. But true transformation is when you're taking all that together and putting it in one big pot and looking to impact all those areas.
Absolutely. I mean,
with a specified end in mind, which is you started with the word funner, and everything evolved around that, which I think you would agree was the critical step. I'm not sure who came up with the concept of funner, but and that's Funner, funner. Is that right?
Yeah, Funner, correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know who to give credit to. I know that before I got there, that the Funner California idea had already been born. I think it was a collaboration between the resorts marketing team and then that agency I referenced in San Diego, California. And so, to your point, real quick, one thing I just thought about is, I don't know if your listeners know this, but there's a relatively new executive role that's been hitting C-suites everywhere. It's called the Chief Transformation Officer.
Oh, yeah.
And essentially, it's the person who's tasked with leading change management. Now, the role itself could be different depending on the company, right? But at its core, what the Chief Transformation Officer does is they look at existing policies and procedures, as well as how the organization operates, both horizontally and vertically. And they look for sacred cows to slaughter, and they work towards, making companies more agile and more primed for whatever the future may bring. Those are all good things, to be sure, but all too often, I think that all that gets done is that the SOPs are rewritten, and maybe a few different spears are pointed in different directions, but it's not true transformation.
I love it. So when you're in an organization and you're transforming, what's the secret to leading during transformation?
Well, I think the secret is multifold. So if you're looking for like a silver bullet answer, I'm not sure if I have that, but I think that the following have to be in place, right? In order to successfully lead during a transformation, you have to be able to inspire trust. You have to define success, because success is going to be different for different people. And so you have to have a common definition of success.
Right.
You, as well as those involved in helping you transform the organization or transform anything, either whether it's an entire organization or a process or a department, they have to be solutions minded. They have to think solutions and not problems. It's far too easy for people to get mired in the muck of problems and mired in the muck of negativity, being a negative Nelly.
Yep.
Right. And so you want to avoid doing that. I think you need to listen and serve. And so one of the easiest things to do, but also it's not really that simple, is you need to take into account, from the point of view of employees, the points of view of your customers, the points of view of ownership, the point of view of business partners, what opportunities exist from those respective points of view.
Sure. Now,
they're bound to have similar ideas. They're bound to have feedback that overlap.
Radley, you are unpacking some serious stuff. And unfortunately, we were out of time for today's podcast. And I was afraid this was going to happen when I invited you to come join me on this podcast, that we'd run out of time. So I'm going to ask, if possible, if you come back, let's continue on this topic, because I think what you're getting into right now is the true meat around leading during transformation. And these are the golden nuggets that our emerging leaders need to be made aware of. So if you don't mind, and if you got time on your busy calendar, I'd love to have you come back. Would you do that?
Absolutely.
For me?
Would be my pleasure. I'll do that in between making a filet mignon and a souffle.
There you go. I love it. So with that in mind, we were unfortunately out of time today, and Radley is going to come back, and we're going to continue down this path of unpacking what transformation looks like and what it means to lead during transformation. We want to thank all of you that are listening today, and we hope that you will come back. In the meantime, don't hesitate to go to arthurkeith.com. Look for the Ask Arthur tab. Drop questions there. Let us know how we're doing. Give us some thoughts on future topics. We'd love to hear from you. And you heard Radley's Instagram page at Radley Medina. You can go check out some of his killer food shots, get inspired, and we hope that inspires you to do shit that you love, all right, while you're considering what it takes to lead during transformation. So thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Look for us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Find the links on arthurkeith.com. What do you stand for?